All right, so get ready because today we are going deep on something I think we all struggle with. Sleep and recovery. And to do that, we're going to be looking at this really interesting blog post from Jocko Rehab. Now, Jocko Rehab, if you don't know, they're a physical therapy center. So you might not think that would be the first place to go for sleep advice, but that's kind of what we do here, right? We find those kind of unexpected sources and see what we can pull out.
Exactly. You never know where you're going to find these little hidden gems.
Yeah. And this one was, it had me rethinking some of my own sleep stuff. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they start out with this statistic that's kind of alarming, I guess. 70% of U.S. adults report poor sleep at least once a month. That's a lot of people.
It is. It's a huge number.
Yeah, and it just that just kind of hit me. How many of us are walking around tired all the time? It's just like the modern condition.
It really makes you wonder, and the CDC actually considers insufficient sleep a public health issue. So it's not just about feeling a little sluggish. There are some pretty serious implications for our health.
Okay, so what kind of risk are we talking about here? What's the downside of skimming on sleep?
Well, chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to an increased risk of all sorts of things like heart attack, stroke, even arthritis and depression have been linked to poor sleep.
Oh, wow.
And that's, like I said, the tip of the iceberg, really. Studies have shown that lack of sleep can compromise your immune system, make you more susceptible to infections. It can also impair cognitive function, affect memory, attention span, decision-making.
Okay, I knew sleep was important, but I didn't realize it was quite that important.
Yeah, it really is fundamental to our health and well-being, and there's this persistent myth that as we age, we need less sleep, but that's just not true. Adults, no matter their age, they still need a minimum of 7 hours per night.
So no more all-nighters, huh?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it. Sleep debt is real, and it accumulates over time. You wouldn't skip meals for days on end, right?
Right.
You can't expect your body and mind to function properly without consistent restorative sleep.
Okay, that's a good point. It's like you always hear people say, I'll sleep when I'm dead, but
right, exactly.
Maybe not the best strategy.
Not the best strategy, no. And it's not just about preventing negative health outcomes either. Sleep plays a crucial role in maximizing our potential. It's during sleep that our bodies repair and rebuild tissue, consolidate memories, regulate hormones essential for growth and development.
It's like I watched this documentary once. I can't remember what it was called, but it was about these athletes. And they were talking about how just prioritizing sleep led to these huge performance improvements. It was like they unlocked some kind of hidden superpower just by getting enough shut-eye.
Absolutely. We often think of sleep as being primarily for mental rest, but it's equally crucial for physical recovery. And this is where the article's focus on physical therapy gets really interesting. They talk about the two main stages of sleep, REM and NREM, and how they contribute to this recovery process.
Okay, yeah, remind me, what's the difference between those two again?
Well, REM sleep is the stage that's associated with vivid dreams. And while it does play a role in memory consolidation and emotional processing, it's not the star player when it comes to physical recovery. That honor goes to NREM sleep.
So REM is more about the mind and NREM is more about like the body repairing itself.
Exactly. You could think of REM as like the creative brainstorming session, and NREM is the actual construction crew getting to work.
I like that, yeah.
And you wouldn't expect a building to magically appear overnight without a construction crew, right?
Right, no.
Same goes for your body. You can't expect it to fully recover without sufficient NREM sleep.
So what's going on in our bodies during that NREM sleep? Tell me more about this construction crew.
Well, within NREM, there are actually two distinct stages, light NREM and deep NREM. Light NREM is like the planning phase, where the blueprints are reviewed, the materials are prepped. Studies have linked light NREM to enhanced learning and memory consolidation, which is why pulling an all-nighter before a big exam is actually counterproductive.
Makes sense.
You might be cramming all that information into your short-term memory, but without that light NREM sleep, it's less likely to stick.
So if I'm learning something new, like whether it's a new tennis serve or, I don't know, a new language, getting enough sleep is just as important as the actual practice.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we have deep NREM sleep, and this is where the heavy lifting really begins. Think of this as the stage where the foundation is laid, the walls are built, the room goes on. This is when our bodies release growth hormone, which stimulates cell regeneration, tissue repair. It's essentially a lightly renovation project for our muscles, bones, and organs.
So deep NRM is like our own personal construction crew, showing up every night, fixing what's broken, building us back stronger. And if we're not giving them enough time to do their job, then we're really shortchanging ourselves, huh?
Exactly, you got it. The article compares sleep to diet and exercise when it comes to recovery. It's not just a nice to have, it's a fundamental pillar of overall health and well-being.
Okay, I'm convinced, especially now that we've talked about this connection between sleep and physical recovery. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What can we actually do to improve our sleep and get all these benefits we're talking about?
Well, that's where this article gets really practical. They get 7 actionable tips, 7 things you can do to create a sleep routine that supports optimal recovery. And the best part is, a lot of this stuff is really simple, easy to implement.
Okay, right. Lay it on me. What are the tips?
So the first one is all about consistency. Our bodies thrive on routine, especially when it comes to sleep. So try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends. This helps regulate your natural sleep-wake cycle, makes it easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling refreshed.
Oh man, so no more sleeping until noon on Sundays, huh?
Well, a little flexibility is fine, but the closer you can stick to your regular schedule, the better. It's like you're training your body to recognize when it's time to wind down, when it's time to power up.
Okay, so consistency is key. What's next?
This one's all about creating a sleep sanctuary. Like, think of your bedroom as a haven for rest and relaxation. Make sure it's cool, dark, and quiet, free from any distractions that might disrupt your sleep.
I'm picturing like blackout curtains, white noise machine, maybe a little diffuser with some lavender, essential oil or something.
Exactly. You want to create an environment that signals to your body and mind that it's time to unwind, prepare for sleep. And here's one that people often overlook: limiting exposure to blue light in the evening.
Oh yeah, blue light. I've heard about that, but why is it so bad for sleep?
Well, blue light, it actually suppresses the production of melatonin. And melatonin is a hormone that helps regulate your sleep-wake cycle. So when you're exposed to blue light at night, it basically tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Makes it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
That's why sometimes I'll be like scrolling through my phone late at night and I'll just feel wide awake, even though it's like, totally dark outside.
Exactly. Yeah, no, ideally you'd avoid screens altogether in the evening, but I know that's not always realistic. So there are some things you can do. A lot of devices now have a night mode setting, which reduces blue light emissions. And you can also get blue light blocking glasses, which filter out those disruptive wavelengths.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into those glasses. That's interesting. All right, so blue light, check. What's the next tip?
This one's about naps. Naps can be great for a quick energy boost, but the key is to keep them short and sweet, ideally no longer than 30 to 60 minutes, and avoid napping late in the day, because that can mess with your nighttime sleep.
So power nap, good. Afternoon siesta, bad.
Exactly. Think of it as a quick recharge, not a full system reboot.
Okay, I can handle that. What else?
All right, next up is being mindful of what you consume close to bedtime. This might seem obvious, but it's worth repeating. Avoid caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine for several hours before you plan to sleep.
I think most people know caffeine can keep you up, but what about alcohol and nicotine? Why are those on the list?
Well, alcohol might initially make you feel sleepy, but it can disrupt your sleep later in the night, lead to less restful sleep overall. And nicotine, that's a stimulus, so it can have similar effects to caffeine, makes it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Okay, so it's all about like setting yourself up for success, right? Avoiding those things that are going to throw your sleep off. Okay, what's next?
This one focuses on your eating habits. Avoid large meals, spicy foods, and excessive fluids close to bedtime.
I'm guessing that's to avoid like indigestion and having to, get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. The article suggests having a light snack if you need to, but keep it small and easily digestible, like a warm glass of milk, a small bowl of oatmeal, something like that.
Okay, noted. Now, what about exercise? I know working out is important, but does the timing of it matter when it comes to sleep?
Absolutely, yeah. Exercise is fantastic for promoting good sleep, but it's best to avoid intense workouts right before bed. And get your system all revved up, make it harder to wind down.
So morning or afternoon workouts are ideal?
Yeah, generally speaking, those are better times for strenuous activity. If you want to do something closer to bedtime, opt for something gentle and relaxing, like stretching or yoga.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered, 6 tips so far. Consistency, creating a sleep sanctuary, mindful napping, avoiding stimulants, watching what we eat, and timing our exercise. What's the last one?
This one's a little different. The article cautions against relying on sleeping pills as a quick fix for sleep problems.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Because they're probably just masking the problem, not really addressing the root cause, right?
Exactly. While sleeping pills can be helpful in certain situations, under the guidance of a medical professional, they shouldn't be a long-term solution. If you're consistently struggling to sleep, it's important to see a doctor. Figure out if there are any underlying issues that might be contributing to your sleep difficulties.
So these 7 tips, they're a great starting point, right? A good foundation for improving sleep hygiene. But what if you're doing all this stuff and you're still tossing and turning at night? What then?
That's a great question, and it's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, all right, let's move on to part 3 and see what else we can uncover about this whole sleep mystery. Okay, so we've talked about the science, we've talked about the impact of sleep on recovery, we've even gotten some practical tips. But I feel like there's got to be more to this story, right? Like, what's the next layer of this whole sleep thing?
Well, it's interesting because the article did a great job of explaining how to improve sleep hygiene. All those tips we just talked about, those are great, but they don't really get into the why. Like, why are so many of us so sleep deprived in the first place?
Yeah, it's like we're trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken bone, Like, we can optimize our sleep routines all we want, but if there's something deeper going on, are we really addressing the problem?
Exactly. And this is where I think things get really interesting. We could talk for hours about all the potential culprits here. Societal pressures, work demands, the 24/7 news cycle, the constant stimulation from technology, the erosion of traditional sleep patterns. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's like our whole world is designed to keep us wired and tired, right? We're bombarded the information, expected to be constantly connected, and there's this pressure to be productive all the time. It's exhausting.
It is. It really is. And it makes you wonder, have we become so obsessed with maximizing our waking hours that we've forgotten the importance of simply resting, allowing our bodies and minds to recharge?
That actually reminds me of something I read recently. It was about the history of sleep. And apparently, like way back in the day, before artificial light and all that, people used to sleep in 2 different segments, like a first sleep and a second sleep. And they'd actually have a period of wakefulness in between. They'd use that time for like reflection or prayer or even social activities. It's just so different from how we think about sleep today.
That's fascinating. It really shows how much our relationship with sleep has changed over time, shaped by cultural norms and technology and all of that. Makes you wonder, have we lost something in this transition to a more, consolidated sleep pattern?
Right. Like, imagine having a dedicated time in the middle of the night for quiet wakefulness. Time to think, to meditate, just be still. Sounds kind of nice, actually.
It does. But for most of us, that kind of sleep pattern just isn't realistic anymore, is it?
No, probably not. So given, the realities of our modern lives, how do we reclaim our sleep? How do we make it a priority when there's so much competing for our time and attention?
Well, I think it starts with a shift in mindset. We need to stop thinking of sleep as a luxury or a sign of laziness and start recognizing it as a fundamental need. Just like eating, drinking, breathing, it's essential for our health, our well-being, and we need to treat it that way.
So instead of like glorifying the hustle, the all-nighter, all that, maybe we need to start celebrating rest and rejuvenation.
Exactly. What if we had a sleep revolution where we all encourage each other to set healthy boundaries, create sleep-conducive environments, prioritize rest, make it a non-negotiable part of our day?
I love that, the sleep revolution. I'm on board. But I'm curious, what are some things you do personally to protect your sleep?
Well, for me, it's really about creating rituals and routines that help me wind down. I try to avoid screens for at least an hour before bed. I dim the light, read a book, maybe take a warm bath, and of course, make sure my bedroom is cool, dark, quiet. A true sanctuary for sleep.
That sounds lovely. What about those nights when you can't seem to turn your brain off? The thoughts are racing.
Oh, I definitely have those nights. What helps me is a little mindfulness practice, focusing on my breath, noticing the sensations in my body, gently guiding my attention back to the present moment whenever my mind wanders. Even just a few minutes of that can make a big difference.
That's great advice. It's amazing how much those simple practices can help.
It really is. And it's not just about those few minutes before bed either. It's about cultivating a more mindful approach to life throughout the day. When we're more present, less reactive to things, we're less likely to carry that stress and anxiety into our sleep.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a holistic approach to sleep, not just focusing on the time in bed, but creating a whole lifestyle that supports restful sleep.
Exactly. And I think that's an empowering message. We have more control over our sleep than we often realize. It's about making conscious choices throughout the day that support our sleep goals.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. We went from the science of sleep stages to the societal factors that influence our rest to practical tips, personal reflections. I mean, it's been a journey. I think the biggest takeaway for me has been this shift in perspective. Seeing sleep not as a luxury, but as a fundamental pillar of health and well-being. Something that deserves our attention and respect.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I'd love to hear from our listeners too, what are your biggest sleep challenges? What tips and tricks have worked for you? Let's keep this conversation going and create a community where we can all support each other in getting better sleep.
That's a great idea. I love it.
So until next time, sleep well, dream big, and remember, prioritizing your sleep is an investment in your health, your happiness, and your overall well-being. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. 6TC.